It was a late afternoon in the heart of Central Park, New York City. The sun cast long shadows across the landscape, bathing the trees in a golden hue. 17-year-old Elijah Thompson, a black teenager, sat alone on a bench near the fountain, casually scrolling through his phone. The park was tranquil, punctuated only by the occasional chirping of birds and distant laughter of children. Elijah cherished these peaceful moments in a world that often felt burdensome. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a woman approaching briskly. Her auburn hair was tightly pulled back, and her face bore an expression of concern. She paused a few feet away, glanced at Elijah briefly, then looked away. "I don't like the look of him," she murmured, but Elijah heard her clearly. His pulse quickened. He had experienced this kind of scrutiny before, being judged solely based on his appearance. She didn't know him or his story, yet her gaze felt accusatory. Suddenly, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I need the police," she said. "There's a black teenager sitting here in the park acting suspicious. He's been here for over an hour. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's making me uncomfortable." Her voice was steady, but Elijah detected an underlying edge of fear, the kind that transformed him into a perceived threat simply because of where he was sitting. His throat tightened. He hadn't asked for this. He merely wanted a quiet moment to himself. But now, the serenity was about to dissolve into something unpleasant. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, drawing nearer. Elijah stood up, his phone still in hand, the screen a blur of notifications. What's going to happen now, he wondered, anxiety gripping him. He knew how these situations could escalate, a simple call, a baseless accusation, and then chaos. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. He had done nothing wrong, yet he found himself on the verge of being handcuffed by someone who saw him as a threat. But there was something Elijah didn't know. Someone was about to change the narrative entirely. Elijah didn't fit the mold the world had carved for him. He wasn't the angry, rebellious teen people often assumed black youths to be. He was a dreamer, a young man who aspired to be seen for who he truly was, intelligent, creative, and driven. He wanted to write, perhaps even make films one day. He yearned to make a difference, but how could he achieve that when every move he made was scrutinized? When a peaceful moment could turn into a confrontation with the police simply because of his skin color. Elijah sighed, running a hand through his hair as the squad car pulled up to the curb. His chest tightened. He had been in similar situations before, but that didn't make it any easier. The police car stopped right in front of him. An officer stepped out, his hand resting near his holster. The woman who had called them stood to the side, her face full of judgment and barely concealed suspicion. She pointed directly at Elijah. "This is him," she said, her voice sharp. "I don't know what he's doing here, but he's acting suspicious." The officer glanced between Elijah and the woman, his eyes narrowing. He took a step forward. "Do you have ID on you?" he asked, his tone calm but tense. Elijah swallowed hard, striving to stay composed. He reached into his wallet and handed over his ID. The officer scanned it quickly, then looked back at Elijah. There was something cold in his gaze, something that suggested this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It felt like a setup. "I'm going to need you to come with me," the officer said, reaching for Elijah's arm. Elijah didn't move, his heart racing, hands trembling slightly. He wanted to protest but knew the rules. Don't resist, don't give them a reason to escalate. His mind was spinning. He was just a kid who hadn't done anything wrong. Was this really happening? The officer's grip tightened on Elijah's arm, and he could feel the weight of every gaze in the park. People were watching now, whispering, but no one intervened. The woman who had made the call stood at a distance, her expression smug, as if she knew the outcome already. But she didn't anticipate what was about to happen next. Just as the officer began to pull Elijah toward the car, a voice rang out. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" The officer froze. The woman looked up, confused. Elijah turned his head, his eyes widening as he saw the woman approaching. It was his mother, Detective Angela Thompson. Her stride was purposeful, exuding quiet authority. She wore a sharp suit, her NYPD badge clipped to her belt. Her eyes locked onto the officer's, unwavering. The officer's grip loosened on Elijah's arm. He recognized her. "Mom," Elijah breathed, relief flooding him. Angela turned to the woman, her voice low and controlled, each word cutting through the air. "Ma'am, did you just call the police on my son?" The woman stammered, her eyes darting between Angela and the officer. I thought, you thought because he's black, he was up to something? Because he's sitting on a bench in broad daylight, he's automatically suspicious?" Angela's voice was icy, each word tinged with authority. The officer's face paled, and the woman was visibly flustered. The power dynamics had shifted. It was no longer just a random encounter, it was personal. Angela stepped closer, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. "Next time you feel the urge to call the cops on someone based on nothing but the color of their skin, remember this moment. You've just made a mistake you won't forget." The woman's face flushed with embarrassment. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. There was nothing she could say to justify her actions. For a moment, Elijah stood frozen, a wave of relief washing over him. But then reality set in. What if his mother hadn't been there to stand up for him? What if it had been another kid with no one to come to their rescue? He felt a pang of guilt, a gnawing frustration that the world so often expected him to prove his worthiness. Angela's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, eyes scanning the screen for a moment. Her expression hardened. "We're done here," she said, turning to the officer who stood stiffly. "Take her report and leave. Now." With a final glance at the woman, the officer nodded and retreated toward his squad car. The woman, red-faced and defeated, watched in stunned silence. Elijah stood there, his heart racing. Angel wrapped an arm around her son's shoulders, pulling him close. "You okay?" she asked softly, her voice no longer as sharp as before. It was a question that carried more weight than the world around them. Elijah nodded, finally exhaling. "Yeah, thanks, Mom." As they walked back to their car, Elijah couldn't help but feel the shift. This wasn't just a moment of protection. It was a moment of revelation. His mother wasn't just his protector. She was a force of change, a reminder that no one should have to fight alone. "Next time we stay away from that park, okay?" Angela said with a smile as they climbed into the car. Elijah chuckled softly.